Hello, this is Chris Cooper, and a big welcome to the Business Elevation Show on Voice America. It's great to be back with you yet again. We're going to be talking today to Duro Oye. We're going to be talking about from the streets to finding your feet, empowering the next generation. And you're going to hear an incredible story today about some incredible work that Duro has done to really help underrepresented and underprivileged young people, in fact, empowering thousands of them. So before we do that, I'd like to say a big thank you to my guest last week, to Julian Huppert. Julian is the founding director of the Intellectual Forum at Jesus College, Cambridge. And we talked about some of the most pressing challenges of our age last week. And I found the conversation just really, really thought-provoking. One of the elements that I found quite fascinating was how he suggested we look at some of the challenges in the world before landing judgment on them, and we imagine that we actually don't know who we are. So, for example, if you're looking at immigration, if you don't know, you could actually be an immigrant. How would you perceive it versus somebody who, is maybe, homegrown in the United Kingdom? And we talked about about seeing things through the lens, almost making yourself impartial, making yourself taking yourself out of the equation. So you look at an issue in a very, very unbiased way. But lots of conversation last week. We talked about AI. We talked about a number of the challenges that we face right now in the world. And I was just quite blown away by how I could have a conversation with Julian about just about anything. He's a former MP for Cambridge as well. So if you want to have a very thought-provoking listen, do go back into the archive and check out the interview with Dr. Julian Hilpert. So the show, what we're about is really about developing and thinking about ourselves as leaders in business and organizations, and how we can go about contributing to a better world and doing good, because good today really matters. We need to change the narrative today, which is a negative one, and help people see actually there is so much good going on in the world. And so many people are doing good out there right now. And I'm really keen, having hosted this show now for 14 years. We're, according to ChatGPT, one of the longest running business shows in the world. So I'm very keen to help people realize actually there's a lot of good. Today, my interview is 610 in terms of the unique interviews that have been done. And I interview so many people who are out there doing their very best to contribute to a really positive world. And we can do that through business without taking from others, with compassion, with kindness, with love, and we can go and help shift this narrative and inspire people to step up and make the most of themselves and do more good. We need to shift this narrative today. And that's what I really care about. So my guest today is somebody who's doing just that. His name is Duro Oye. And he's absolutely fascinating. He's the founder and CEO of the multi-award-winning charity 2020 Levels. Since their inception in 2013, the organization has directly empowered over 3,750 young people and reached a wider community of more than 22,000. And what they really care about is supporting individuals from Black, racially underrepresented, and low socio-economic backgrounds, and really helping them to elevate their potential and discover it and carve out really successful futures. So that's why I'm excited to talk about him and his work today, because it's inspiring. I mean, he's a storyteller. He's has a background in filmmaking. He has a bio that if you go and look at the archive is quite incredible. He seems to be on all sorts of boards and key roles. He's a DE&I Impact Champion at the Conduit London. He's got lots of to him and to his credibility and work. So we're going to tell today about moving from the streets to finding your feet. And I'd also like to say thank you to Barnaby Winter. Barnaby is a great friend of mine. He's a member of the Elevation Collective, is a community I lead of exceptional people contributing to a better world through their work. and he introduced me to Duro. We were sitting in a fabulous club called the Homegrown Club
Mhm.
in London, and Doro was sitting there, Duro, sorry, and we got to meet. So a big welcome to Duro Oye.
Thank you so much, Chris. So lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation today, and always like to start, Duro, by getting a sense of people and who they are and where they came from.
Mm.
I just wonder for you, if you could maybe tell a little bit about your story of life growing up for you, and what is it that really inspired you to want to help young people?
I think it was my upbringing. It was growing up in the same kind of environment that the young people that we help today grew up in. And just seeing the deprivation and lack of access to opportunities is what really inspired me. So I was born in Nigeria and I moved to the UK at the age of 5. And we lived a very comfortable life in Nigeria. But I guess my parents had some foresight in terms of the direction in which the country was going in, and they wanted me to have better options. Um, so I came at the age of 5, and I stayed with my sister, and she lived in probably one of the worst council estates in the whole of the history of council estates. So I landed in Broadwater Farm in North London, and like you mentioned in the intro, I'm very creative. My imagination can run wild. And I love to see things and allow my mind to explore and to grow. And living in Broadwater Farm Estate, I didn't have the opportunity to do that because I wasn't inspired by anything that I saw looking out the window, nor was I inspired by anything that I saw within the four walls of the council estate or council house that we lived in. So I moved eventually to South London with another sister, and things started to take a better turn for me. But even still, we didn't have a lot growing up. We eventually made some money and moved to the suburbs of South London, but that's a story for another day. But for me, it's like growing up in South London, surrounded by both opportunity, but real challenges at the same time. I was able to see firsthand and experience firsthand how easy it is for young people, especially those that come from disadvantaged and underrepresented backgrounds, fall through the cracks. I was also an individual that nearly fell through the cracks, but thankfully, because of positive male role models, positive people around me showing me that I could take a different path, I didn't spiral as far down as some of the young people that I eventually came across to help. So what inspired me is knowing the difference that just one opportunity could make in the life of an individual, be it one mentor, be it one person that just able to give you a chance or a second chance. And my life changed when I encountered those individuals. Someone took a chance on me, when I was starting out in business. Someone gave me my first little pot of money. Someone believed in me. And I felt like this is what I want to do. I was determined to create that same pathway that someone created for me for others. And I wanted to essentially be the person that I felt like I needed growing up. So that's where the inspiration for the work that we do today came from.
Yeah. So can you is it one particular person that you can really pinpoint that,
Yeah.
difference to? Tell
Yeah.
me a little bit about them. What did you learn from them?
I mean, I just learned how to be a man of integrity. That individual kind of showed me what it meant to stand on your word, really kind of believe in yourself and what you say and deliver on it. So I had men around me that weren't the most positive, but then when I got around a different circle of men, they showed me what it meant to be a man. And for me, it's all about integrity. You say you're going to do something, you do it. You say you're going to show up, you show up. And it started with the little things. It was those little things that planted those seeds in me that I was like, when I grew up, this is the kind of man that I want to be. So yeah, I look back and I have fond memories of those experiences, as well as obviously the not so nice experiences as well. But these things,
Yeah, and what took you, you went into, documentaries and
yeah.
filming. What took you along that line, and how has that evolved to where you are today?
So I was always creative. I did fine art at secondary school. graphics and advertising at fine art and graphics at college, and then graphics and advertising at university. It's at university that I fell in love with film and the art of storytelling. Post-university, I went into film school. I got a diploma in documentary filmmaking. Then I started my career in TV. So getting my foot in the door in the creative industry was probably one of the hardest things I ever encountered at that tender young age. I eventually got my foot in the door, and I looked for individuals that looked like me, came from similar backgrounds in more senior leadership positions that could potentially take me under their wing and show me the ropes. Even though they were few and very far between, to my disappointment, they weren't very forthcoming with their help and their support. You'd be surprised to know that it was middle-aged white men that took me under their wing and saw something in me and saw a bit of a spark and were like, there's something about you. And they're the ones that kind of showed me the ropes. They mentored me, they guided me. And for me, it was during those years that I thought, once I made a semi-success of myself, I was going to go back and support people that come from similar backgrounds to me. And so the documentary filmmaking stuff was just my outlet of being able to tell stories, stories that don't necessarily get airtime. I eventually got kind of typecasted because I was very much known for telling gang stories, drug stories. I think there's probably a stint between 2014 to maybe like 2016, 18, that anything that you saw on mainstream TV in the UK that had to do with gangs or drugs had my name in there. So,
Really?
yeah. Yeah. So I wanted to break away from that, but before doing that, I made my own feature-length documentary, which was self-funded, and I worked with 6 ex-gang leaders, 3 from Peckham, 3 from Brixton, which are notorious areas here in London. And what I did is I spent 18 months with them, just kind of documenting their change. These were individuals that had already started to turn their lives around, but they found it difficult to re-engage back with society. They found it difficult to find meaningful employment. And no one ever told them or taught them that the skills that they acquired from doing a lot of the wrong things could be used as transferable skills to either gain meaningful employment or start their own legitimate businesses.
Yes.
Because I'd seen both sides, I straddled the fence on both sides. But my story is different because I don't have the horror stories like a lot of the people that I came up with, nor do I have the horror stories that the 6 young men that I worked with on that initial documentary. So I've never been shot, never been stabbed. Never been to prison. So me kind of turning my life around was relatively easier than someone else who had spiraled a lot further down the tracks. So I was able to show them how to utilize the skills that they acquired from the term that I coined as street enterprise, to be able to utilize those skills as transferable skills, start their own businesses. And during that time, I realized I didn't know that what I was doing was mentoring, and it was over time that I saw that it was mentoring, and that's how I used the information from them and my own life experiences to create the program that we run and deliver now.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more then about 2020 levels and what you do and how you
So
help.
2020 Levels is a social mobility charity. So we work with young adults aged between 18 and 30. Right now, we have 2 main programs that we deliver, and they're both centered around educating young adults, giving them the tools that they need. So some will call them soft skills, we call them life skills. Ultimately, we teach things that aren't taught in school or things that should be taught in the home if you grew up in a strong, stable household. But a lot of young people that we support don't have that. So things like financial literacy, money management, digital skills, corporate social etiquette, emotional intelligence, mindfulness, breathwork exercises to deal with social anxiety. And then we couple all of that with employability skills. So CV writing, cover letter writing, assessment day prep, interview day prep, all of that good stuff. And at the end of the career development program, they get invited to a jobs and careers fair where they meet a number of our corporate partners, employer partners, and we use that as an opportunity to introduce them into the world of work. But we don't just stop once we place them into employment. We also support them until they pass probation help them map out and chart a course for their career so they can move from entry level to mid level and eventually rise to more senior leadership positions. That's what we do on the career side. On the business side, excuse me, we do the same mindset adjustment program, helping them find themselves, think about what makes them tick, think about what industries they're best served in. But a number of these young adults have some amazing ideas that they've never been able to explore. No one's ever told them that this is how you set up a business. So we teach them all of these things. We connect them with mentors. And that's how Barnaby and I became close. Because Barnaby, he's probably one of our business mentors on the program. I think he's had 4 people that he's mentored get to the finals and pitch for investment.
Wow.
So yeah, big shout out to Barnaby for that.
He's fantastic.
He's great. And the program, it connects you with a business mentor, someone like Barnaby. It takes you through a series of 5 business masterclasses. So business basics, finance fundamentals, marketing matters, let's talk legal, and perfect pitch. And at the end of their cohort, they get the opportunity to pitch for equity-free investment into their business, just something that they can help boost them to that next level. And that's what we do. So we run both programs in parallel. We host a job fair at the end of each cohort for the career development one. The week after, we run a pitch night, and we just do the same thing 3 times a year.
It's amazing. What wonderful work.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And I had a little involvement with a wonderful charity in East London,
Hmm.
and what they were helping young people to do in the categories that you described was to give them the confidence to move towards an acting career. And some of their people have ended up in film and TV, and so they get them in to produce a production in the theatre. I
Hmm.
went to one of their events and I spoke at it, and I was so moved by the plight and the stories of some of them, but also really and saddened by some of those stories too. And some of the people that came in were clearly very damaged from their experiences. Some of them had overcome that. How do you help? It's lovely bringing all these wonderful programs together that you do, but there must be some real challenging moments with people. You think you've made progress, and then you find actually, they're back selling drugs on the street or
Hmm.
something like. How do you help get people through that journey so you get a positive outcome for them and for 2020 levels?
Really, really good question. And it's one that I grappled with a lot while we were starting out. But now we've gotten to a stage where we know who the program is designed for. We know the kind of young person that will make the most of the program. So we are very, very careful about who we select onto the program. It's a huge investment on the young person side, as
Yeah.
well as huge financial investment on our side. So we, on average, get about between 250 to 300 applications for each cohort. We can only ever take on comfortably between 50 and 75 young people. So a lot of young people are having to wait for the next cohort. So we've designed a series of interview questions that helps us get to the crux of the individual, really getting to know whether they're ready for this journey that they're about to embark on. So instead of trying to force them down this path, it has to be a choice. So we don't spoon feed anyone, we don't baby anyone. We're trying to prepare them for real life because they're not going to get that. No one's going to handhold you through difficult times. So when they come to us, they need to be ready to go on that journey. They
Yeah.
need to they need to have already made the decision to leave the life that they were living behind and not bring that into the mix. It's a mindset adjustment program. So for a lot of those that were involved in criminality, they have already had to make the decision that I no longer want to go down this path. Now I want to explore what my options are. That's where we kind of come in. And what we found, we were originally working with those that were involved in criminality, but over the years, we identified that there was a forgotten group of young people within that same community. And these are young people that did all of the right things. They went to school, they kept their heads down, got the grades, but they still struggle to meaningful employment post-graduating. And that's because they're first generation university grads. So that their parents have never been to university, nor have they ever worked in the corporate world. So they don't know how to navigate the space. And we thought there aren't any organizations that are serving this group, because in your mind, you'll think you've got a university degree, you should be fine. So we then started servicing that group as well. So we have a mixed bag in each cohort. So you might have a fraction of those that were involved in criminality and now turning their lives around. You have a fraction of those that are not in education, training, or employment. And you have a fraction of those that are highly educated, but still lack opportunities to be able to advance their career or land their perfect job. Now, that's that perfect blend of young people from different backgrounds, different experiences, but at the same stage in life. So we then use the program design to allow them to make the most of it. And then that's just the way it works.
Yeah, yeah. It's I met a young man a couple of years ago who I give a little support to, and he was brought up in the roughest council estate in Birmingham, uh,
Mm.
and with a single mum with several children who was poorly. So he was looking after the family really, and I asked him how he learned some of his communication skills. And he said, well, every day I leave the flat, and there are drug dealers outside, and I've had to negotiate the drug dealers all my life,
Yeah.
and actually I get on with them all,
Mm.
and I can probably tell you almost every drug dealer in Birmingham, but I've never taken drugs. I've
Mm.
always refused, and I refuse to sell drugs, but I've
Mm.
had to be very smart at the way that I went around that.
Exactly.
That was, and I think I was thinking of him when you were talking, about actually, somebody really, really deserves a chance. You must hear some incredible stories. Do you have any examples of that you're particularly proud of people who've any stories?
Yeah, absolutely. One person that comes to mind, I won't mention his name, but he did our program a few years back, and he was actually someone that was, yeah, neck deep in that world. He came across our program via social media. I think he saw some of his friends on the program previously. Um, so he signed up, and he on the program, actually, we do this thing where you introduce yourself as you would 5 years from now, but talking in present tense. So you already fast forward into the future and saying, these are
Mhm.
what I'm doing, this is where I'm living. But then we have you throw curveballs in there. So what are the challenges that you had to overcome in order for you to get there? So at the beginning and at the end of each session, we just pick people at random. So one day he was sharing his videotape, but his phone kept ringing off, ringing off, ringing off, ringing off. And he knows his words. He said he's not that popular, so he was wondering why his phone was ringing so much. Only for him to check his phone once he finished delivering his videotape, and he got several missed calls from family members, other cousins. Turns out his closest cousin got stabbed, and his friends were calling him so that they could go out and retaliate and find the people that stabbed him. And he had to make a decision right there and then whether he was going to stick on this journey of change and transformation that he started, or he was going to go back into the life that he once knew. And he made one of the bravest decisions on that night. He said no. And he told them, I'm not doing this. I'm not coming. And as you can imagine, they called him all the names under the sun, but he stuck with the program. And he had ambition to secure employment in tech. We were able to firstly get him a job with Apple. And then he went and retrained and got a Scrum Master qualification. And he came back and he's now working with one of our telecom partners as a senior Scrum Master. And he is an amazing testament of what's possible if you decide to stand your ground.
Mm.
He's just a phenomenal individual. He's now breadwinner in his household. He supports the whole family. And that's just based off of this one decision that he made on one faithful night. not to go out and retaliate his cousin's stabbing.
Yeah, fantastic. So what's a Scrum Master, did you say?
Yeah. So
What was
basically, project manager for coders.
Oh, okay. Right. Not a term. Going straight to rugby in my mind. Yeah, so excellent. We've just got a couple of minutes to commercial break now, but I wonder what have been the challenges for you in setting up this organization? Oh, we've got 1 minute actually. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll be fair, and rather than answer that in 1 minute, we'll go to commercial break now. And after the break, I want to learn a little bit about the kind of the mindset and the lessons that you've learned in forming this charity, because I know they require a lot of energy, a lot of focus and tenacity, and you overcome all sorts of obstacles on the journey. So I'm sure there's some things we can learn from that. So we'll be back again with everybody in just a couple of minutes. Do join us after the break. If you've got a moment during the break, you could always check out 2020levels.org, and you'll get a little bit more of a sense of what Duro's organization and team do. But we'll be back again in just a couple of minutes. Do join us shortly. Hi, this is Chris Cooper, and I'm talking to Duro Oye, and we're hearing his fantastic story about how he's helping, and his organization 2020 Levels are helping thousands of young people to get, from the streets to really finding their feet. And it's what's fascinating is that in the situation of development and programs and commitment from young people is leading to pitches and the opportunity to generate funding for their projects and initiatives, but also the opportunity for some of them to find full-time employment. We mentioned that you mentioned that Apple in your example, which is a cool company to work for. Duro, maybe you could just tell me a little bit about your journey in forming this organization. What have you learned yourself about sort of mindset and leadership, and what have been your key lessons in making this vision that you had come to life?
I think for me, I started off as a one-man band. I literally just ran with the vision. I was a man with this idea to create an organization that was going to help young people from disadvantaged backgrounds. I didn't have a background in social impact or charity work. Everything that I learned, I had to learn on the job. And I made several mistakes along the way. But in making those mistakes, I was able to learn very quickly which path I wanted to create for myself. So I was able to identify that funding was a key thing, but we couldn't just rely on applying for grants from trust and foundations. And I didn't have a track record, so nobody would give
Yeah.
me money. So I had to prove myself. So I self-funded the organization for 5 years. And I decided that the path that I was going to take was through corporate sponsorship. Um, and I needed to prove that the model worked. And I was really good about making noise about our impact. So that's how I kind of grew the organization. But to your point around the mindset that I needed to cultivate in order to grow the organization, there were three key things thinking about this question that I thought really helped me along my journey. First one was resilience. So understanding that setbacks, they're inevitable, they're always going to come. But they're never final. So I had several setbacks, thousands of no's, but I kept going. I said I was started as a one-man band and realized very quickly that I needed a team. I needed to collaborate with partners to really bring this vision to life. There's a saying that says it takes a village to raise a child, and I'd also say it takes a village to grow a community organization. But within that community, you also need to be able to find your tribe within that village as well. So that is something that I learned very early, that I needed to surround myself with highly skilled, highly capable people that could really help deliver on this vision. And then adding action to that vision. So there's no point in just being a visionary and, being philosophical and quoting things, but you really need to roll your sleeves up and get things done. I've always believed in, dreaming big, but I needed to match that with concrete steps. So there were three key things that really kind of helped me along on this journey.
Yeah, fantastic. And so, what have been your secrets to building those relationships, to securing all of these millions of pounds of funding? Because that can't be easy.
No, it's not. And when I talk about, how we fundraise, people always look at me like you make it sound so easy. And not to say that it comes easy to me, but the one key thing is authenticity, right? For me, it's about being authentic. And I am authentic through and through. I don't shy away from my past and my upbringing. I identify all of these things because I even champion them because it's what makes me me, right? And I lead with that. And in leading with that and being open and being vulnerable with people about my past and my journey, they're then open and vulnerable with me as well. And then over the years, like I said, we've been doing this for 12 years. I've got a solid track record of being able to deliver time and time and time again. And because I was self-funded for the first 5 years, people look at me like I was crazy. So you had a thriving career in the creative industry. You left all of that to create an organization that was going to support young people, and you self-funded it. Who does that? And I'm meeting these senior execs that a lot of them are towards the end of their career, and they're now thinking about legacy. And they're looking at me, someone that's like probably half their age, or more, maybe even more than half of their age, um, thinking that I've given my best years to create something that's just helping people. And then they just can't get their heads around it. And they're like, I'm thinking about that now, but you were thinking about that, years ago.
Yes.
But that's where that connection kind of comes in, because they see what we've created as a vehicle for them to be able to impact lives.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and it's very tangible now, isn't it? It's very what you've done is very visible with a track record. You've helped a lot of people, and so in itself, it becomes something which is very inspiring to people.
Yeah. And and the fact that it all just started from an idea that nobody thought would amount to anything. Because you have lots of organizations, doing similar work now, but they weren't around when we first started.
Yeah.
Like, how did you even see that this was going to be possible? How did you even see that this was going to blow up in the way that it did? And sometimes I'm just like, you know what? I didn't. I just went in with blind faith. I was leading with the heart. I wanted to create something, that I felt like I needed when I was younger. And even if it just helped one young person, then great. And that just kept multiplying and multiplying and multiplying, to the point where, as you know, I've got this ambition to touch 1 billion lives across the globe. And that sounds crazy, right? But when you really think about it and break that down into bite-sized chunks, it's very doable.
Mm.
Of a social unicorn. Everybody knows what a unicorn in business terms, that, you've made £1 billion or $1 billion. But how about an organization that's touched 1 billion lives across the globe?
Mm.
For me, that's now the ambition. I'm like, okay, so I could do
So that'll keep you going for a while.
for real.
Are, are you sure you're thinking big enough?
Let's go bigger. Let's 10x.
What I love about this is what you and I'm seeing this through a number of my conversations with people who've gone and achieved some exceptional things. This idea and the phrasing of it was shared with me by a lady called Jude Currivan, who's been on the show and was part of an event that I hosted a couple of weeks ago. She's a cosmologist and a real change maker who's worked in about 80 countries, 60, 80 countries across the globe. And she talked about this notion of urgency, and that,
Mm.
about feeling that urge inside, and I feel that urge with the community that I've created and are evolving. It's beyond, it's a feeling, it's beyond a strategy. It's something that you feel belongs to you and is intended for you. And providing you follow that and move it forward with kindness and love and authenticity that you describe, and you start to embody it, you feel that agency for it. It starts to materialize, and I'm just fascinated how I meet so many people today who are doing amazing things, and they
Even though I'm running this organization, we've got a staff base now. I don't need to be in the sessions. I don't need to deliver the sessions anymore. But every once in a while, I slide in there just to hear from the young people, hear their dreams and their ambitions. And, I just remember when I was that age and I was like, this is exactly what I needed. We've
did.
been able to help them facilitate this community building element where they meet like-minded individuals on the same journey as them, and the bonds that they make truly phenomenal. Now that we stepped into the business entrepreneurship development side of things, some of their ideas, just having seasoned entrepreneurs give you tips on where you might be going wrong, it's invaluable. You can't put a price on that. And everybody loves doing it. Like, the coaches, the mentors, they all volunteer their time because they yearn for that youthful zeal, that, ability not to care, but in a good way. Like, the world is your oyster. Like, you're just gonna go for it. And why not?
Yeah. Yeah. It's something very energizing about being around people like that who don't see those barriers, isn't there? That you might have constructed yourself.
I mean, I have these kind of conversations with my wife all the time. Like I said, I say to her that I needed to start when I started because if I would never be able to start an organization like this now. I'd never be able to take the risks that I took back then. Now, it just it just wouldn't happen.
Well, so is that because you have a family? Is it because
I've
of
got
family?
a family, I've
Yeah.
got responsibilities, I've got bills.
Yeah.
Everything comes with being an adult. But when you're young, you're not thinking about those things. And most times, a lot of young people waste their youth by doing nothing.
Yeah.
You're not in yourself. You're not building. You're not connecting. You're not finding what it is that you're here for. And then you get to your 40s, 50s, and you're just like, wow, like I've got what 20, maybe 15 summers left, and
Yeah.
hits you hard. But being around these young adults, it energizes me, and I'm just like, yeah, go for it. You start at 18, and you gotta have 18-year-olds engaging with 27-year-olds, and they're both sharing knowledge together. So that 18-year-old is gaining from the wisdom and the experience of the 27-year-old right there on the same program.
Mm. Mm.
Amazing.
Mm. Yeah. Wow. Wow. And what have you learned from being in some of these programs from the young people? What do you learn? What do you give an example? Are you reminded about their energy and enthusiasm? But do you learn from them when you're with them?
Absolutely. It's part of what we take into some of the corporate training that we do. So predominantly the group that we work with are Gen Z, it's the generation that we work with, right? And they are very different in their makeup and their approach to life. They're always thinking about what's the quickest and fastest way for me to do something. You
Mm.
know, is there a different way of doing something? I love their curiosity. That's one thing that I learned from them, that ability to ask questions to really get to the crux of something. And where it really shows up is when we place someone into employment and they're questioning their manager, right? Like, why do we do this way? And then you start to see that the manager actually they don't have the answers. They just fall back to this is the way we've always done it. And the young person's like, but why? Maybe there's another way of doing it.
Yeah.
And just having that kind of discussion blow up for me is the most powerful thing that happens in these sessions. And even in the mentoring sessions as well, there's reverse mentoring elements. There's learnings that the young person is sharing with the senior leader at the same time as the senior leader is sharing things with the young person. It's just beautiful. And I think that's what brings everybody back, because each time is different. Each young person brings something different. And that's what we're trying to harness, right? We don't want them to lose the essence of themselves when they go out into the world of work or go out into the world of business, because that's ultimately what makes them them. So, how do you protect this innocence of a young person, that curiosity, and to just ask questions? Because when you get older, people tend to shy away because they don't want to look stupid.
Yeah.
But
So
that
yeah, yeah. So that's really interesting. So that point there, with how do you help a young person to open up and become vulnerable?
mm,
When they might come from environments where you know keeping face and
yeah,
uh, where I have two teenage boys who are 15 and 19. Had to sort of work through to help them, release their vulnerability.
yeah.
You have to do that at a point where actually there's a point in age when they think everything you do is stupid. You know, how do you get through that veneer?
We take them outside of their comfort zone, right? And when we throw them into the deep end,
Yeah.
like you got to remember, these young adults are coming from different parts of London, and most times they're in a group where they don't know anybody. So you don't that persona that you brought into the room doesn't need to come in, because nobody knows who you were before you walked into this room.
Hmm.
So if you create a safe space where it allows people to be vulnerable and to be open, everybody else will buy into that. So when they see someone else open up and they're vulnerable, like, okay, nobody laughed at them. Okay, nobody mocked them. Okay, that means I can actually show up as myself here. So we design the program in a way where very, very quickly, by week 2, they're already opening up, already feeling comfortable. And we also are very selective about who we put into the cohort. So we don't have too many alphas and, too many, outspoken individuals that, will take up the whole session. So we try and balance it. And the facilitators are really skilled in navigating those kind of environments and, yeah, allowing people to open up, and also they show their vulnerability too, to let them know that this is a safe space. And by the end of the program, like I said, the bonds that they make, absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah. 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 That's I think one of I did a speech for a group of underprivileged young people in London, and I think for me it was a real surprise because it was around The Power to Get Things Done Whether You Feel Like It or Not, which is a book that I co-wrote, and the charity picked up on it and said, could they use some of it? I said, well, do you want me to come down and do a session? And it was amazing because we were using examples, and where I get sort of examples of people being blocked by things. When I asked them, what are some of the biggest challenges, obstacles in your life, it was the police. Going to jail. It was kind of different things that I wasn't anticipating. Um,
Mm,
but the joy of them being there was such. By at the end of the session, someone said, you know, thank you. This has been really, I've really enjoyed this. Can we dance? And somebody put music on and we all danced. I mean,
I
it
love
was so
that.
liberating and free. And I've got this amazing picture of me sort of dancing with these young people at the end of it. I've never experienced that sort of joy and, you know, yeah, free spirit, really. It was
Yeah.
worth everything to go down and do that.
Yeah, and that's what you want to harness, right? You want to cherish that. You want to have them hold on to that for as long as possible.
Yeah. So if you
Yeah.
give us some tips, so let's say some young people are maybe considering applying for your program. they're listening to this right now, what tips could we give them to, increase the probability that they'll get on one of your programs, which sounds great, and ideally, what are some of the characteristics that they should learn, to enable them to succeed?
Sure, absolutely. So, in terms of getting onto the program, all you need to do is be yourself. So, when we advertise the program online, we have people show up like if they're going for a job interview,
Mm.
dressed to the nines and fully polished. And what we try and do is we try and break all of that down because that's not who you are. That's who you want to show up to be, right? We want to get to know you. So, the more challenging your background, the better. The more open you are to be able to talk about those challenges, the better. What we're really looking for is what have you learned along those journeys that you've been on, right? You made mistakes. Everybody's made mistakes. What are the learnings that you take from that? And where are you now? Where would you like to get to? You might not have those answers, but that's what the program is there to help you identify. So just show up as yourself. And that's what we really want to know. We want to know who you are, where you're trying to get to, and can we help you along on that journey? That's
Mm.
all. And as long as you fall into the categories, so either being Black, racially underrepresented, come from a low income household, so anything under 20,000 or 25,000 household income, the program's for you. We don't ask for much. We don't care about your qualification, education level. None of that stuff matters. What we care about is you. And we are so confident in the program that we know that if you commit to at least attending 80% of the program, there's no way you will leave the same way that you came.
Right. And this is focused. Is it focused just on London, or do you serve other areas too?
We are just in London, but we are in the process of expanding and going national. So we're doing that through the university networks, working with clusters of university cities, and we're currently going digital as well. So we're building an online platform, a mobile app that will allow young people to be able to access the content regardless of where they are. So to your initial question about how we're going to touch 1 billion lives, that's exactly it. And the aim is to be able to create something that we can deploy into other cities and other countries, and white label it so other community organizations can work with it with the young people. What we care about is the data that comes through on the back end, the impact and also the quality control piece. That's what we're going to stay in control of. But everything else, can go out to the young people.
Excellent. And if you for any corporates who are listening to this right now, people come from that sort of background, how could they get involved with what you're doing, and what's the benefit to them of doing so?
Absolutely. So we are in a really, really privileged position to be funded by some of the world's biggest corporate companies, and they fund us so they can tap into, well, one of the reasons why they fund us is so that they can tap into the talent on the back end,
Hmm.
right? So they're always looking for top tier talent. Our program can churn them out in their hundreds and in their thousands. So they want to be able to tap into that. And there's CSR benefits of partnering with us as well. There's mentoring benefits for partnering with us as well. We're really keen to engage with industries and sectors that would like to employ young people, particularly Gen Z, but don't have a way of engaging them. So we're really good at bringing new industries and new sectors in and presenting them to the young people in a way that's palatable to them.
Hmm.
So for those that aren't in the most sexy type industries, but everybody needs talent, right? Drop us a message. We can help you find the talent to bring into your business, because every business ultimately has departments. You have finance, you have marketing, you have sales. These are all skills that these young people have in droves, but we just need to make your company attractive for them.
Hmm. Yeah, fantastic. Hey, this has been absolutely brilliant. Just we've got just a couple of minutes. You ask your young people about
Okay.
their vision 5 years ahead.
Yeah.
It can be quite a challenging question for people sometimes. Where will 2020 levels be, and Duro Oye in 5 years' time? What's your vision?
20 levels. So we are now what, 2025 will be 2030. Wow. The aim is that I will no longer be at the helm of the organization. I would love to pass the baton on to a young adult that's kind of navigated their way through the program.
Mm.
So former beneficiary of the organization that we supported into sustainable employment. They've risen up through the ranks to more senior leadership position in their corporate role. And now they want to come back and lead the organization to greater heights. That's the aim, and that's the plan. Actively working through that as we speak. So the organization will be international by then, for sure. The online platform, the mobile app, all of that will be in place. I think we would love to be in a position where young people, regardless of where they are, as long as they have access to the internet and a mobile phone, which I'm sure they will, especially with the technological advancements of AI right now, they'll be able to access our program that will alter their mindset. And for me personally, I would be still in the world of business, but not working in the business as much, because the dream was always to, when my kids, I only have one now, but by then I'll have a couple more, are of school going age, I have the flexibility to be able to spend a lot more time with them, because that's the dream ultimately. Because if I really think about the essence and the core of what it is that we're doing here, is that we're building strong, stable individuals that can go out into the world to build strong, stable families and
Yeah.
not have to deal with the issues that we're currently dealing with. So I need to lead by example. I can't be all things to all men and then in my own household, nobody knows me. So yeah, that's that's what I'd like to be doing.
Well, fantastic. So do you have a final message you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, I think for me, the last thing I'd like to leave you with is what the art of the impossible. Believing in your dream, believing in your passion, and going out and making that happen. Don't lose the core essence of who you are trying to fit in with society. Society was never made for us to fit into. We're supposed to go into it and shape it to see it as we see fit. So whatever it is, that idea, that ambition, that drive, go out and make it happen. It's the last thing I'd like to leave your audience with.
Fantastic. Well, on that note, we need to move on. Duro, it's been an absolute privilege talking to you. Really inspiring. Congratulations on what you've achieved and all those thousands of young people that 2020 levels are helping. And I think when you contributed yourself and supported it for 5 years as well, and evolved it, it's all credit to you and credit to your team in terms of what you're doing. So if you can, think you can help 2020 levels, or you're interested in maybe even applying to 2020 levels, go to 2020levels.org and check out their website. Is that any other contact you want to give them, or is that the main?
Yes, it's website, and we're on all over social media as well. So at 2020 levels, LinkedIn, 2020 levels as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. And so on our next week's show, we have Julie Wignall. Julie has written a book it's about fireflies. It's about people who are like Duro, who are actually, feeling that sense of urgency and have come upon an idea and they illuminate and they are contributing to real positive change in the world. So and Julie has collected lots and lots of stories about people who she would describe as fireflies who are doing just that. So next week, come back, be prepared to be inspired with lots of stories and case studies from around the globe of people who are doing exceptional things. Once again, a big thank you to Duro Oye. If you're interested in finding more about some of the things we've been talking about, looking at past shows, you can check out chriscooper.co.uk. There's more information on there and around our leadership work as well on that and the Elevation Collective. So take care, everybody, and have a great week. And once again, Duro Oye, thank you so much for your contribution to the world. And I look forward to when 2020 levels is impacting 1 billion lives a year.
Thank you.